Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Destiny from Desphixs and welcome back to another video in the e-commerce project using Django. In this one, we'll get started creating products in our e-commerce app, and that is what we'll be doing. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. So let's get started. So I will begin by opening up my code editor, and right now I'm going to open up the vendor views py. All right, this is where we are. So now the very first thing we will do is create products. So I'm going to be writing the most simplified code so that everyone can understand what is going on, because it will get a little bit tricky when we start updating products, and I don't want you to throw you off guard. Okay, so I'll make sure that I keep everything simple and clean. Now let us start off by creating a login required, and over here I'm going to say define create product and pass in requests. Good. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is fetch all the categories that we have in our platform by saying store models.categories.objects.all. So this is going to fetch all the categories that we have in our database and save it in the categories variable. Let's go ahead and fetch items that will be used to create the product. So I want to check if request.method is equal to post. Good. Now, what do I want to do if request.method is equal to post? I need to get some items like the image. So I'm going to say requests.files.get. Now, whenever you want to get an image, you should use files instead of request.post. But now we want to get the name of the product. So I'm going to say name should be equal to request.post. request.post.get name. All right, and also I'm going to say category underscore id should be equal to requests.posts.get, and then I'm going to say category underscore id. Very good. Then also I'm going to pass in description over here. Description should be equal to requests.posts.get. then I'm going to say description. Oh, good. That is what I want. Now let's also get the price of the product. So I'm going to say, you know what, if you don't want to have to keep typing out all this, you could duplicate this in many places, then just change the informations up here. So here, price. Whoops, I think I went all the way to the top. Let's get to the bottom again. So price, and this one, I'm just going to call it the regular price, regular underscore price. And for this one, I'm just going to change it to shipping, which is the shipping amount. And for this one, let's just say shipping, not shipping amount. And for this one, I'm going to change it to stock, and that should be it. Good. So now all we need to do is say product should be equal to store models dot product dot object dot create. And what do we want to create? Basically all these fields here. You can copy everything here. I believe I have explained this shortcut in the past, and we paste over here, and this should be equal to the same things. So now when you check out the product model, you will see that it has a field called image. It also has another one called name, category id. Okay, this is where we have to work with something. There is nothing like the category id. Okay, so there is nothing like the category id in the product model. So what we need to do is fetch category based on the category ID. So for that, you will say category should be equal to then store models dot category dot objects dot get, where ID is equal to the category ID. Then you just need to take category here and put it here and also here. Good. Does that make sense? And after you've done that, that is pretty much everything that we need. Okay, so let's just go ahead and return redirects to the vendor update product. So over here I will then say products.id. Very good. So here we have return redirects vendor updates products. Then it will always need products.id for it to get updated. Now let's create the context. So the context, I only need this context because I want to pass in categories. So I want to pass in that categories. That is only why I need the context. Okay, so categories. Good. Now return render, and over here I'm just going to pass in requests. And what else do we need? After requests, the vendor slash creates underscore products.html. All right, so after you've done this, now let's go ahead and test this out and see how it works. Then we'll start up with the product update. Very good. So I'm going to create a new URL for this one over here. Product creation. So product management. And we will have parts that will be looking like this. This one is going to be create products, not coupon, but products instead. And over here also create product, and over here also create products. Good. So all you just need to do is take this create products that we have over here, and you want to put it somewhere in your page. Okay, so let's say in the products page, somewhere here we want to have create products, or is even in the dashboard. So somewhere in the dashboard, or even, oh, look at its space here. So let's put it here. This is its space. So all you need to do is open up the sidebar for this and look for the create product, and you just need to replace it by saying URLs, then vendor create products. Good. That is exactly what I wanted to do. So after you've done this, if you get back here and reload this page, we should now be able to click on this and it opens up. Oh, let's see. Did our page, I think for some reason our page must not have reloaded correctly as we wanted. So I'm just going to reload my page, and that is still taking us to profile, which is very wrong. So I'm going to break out from my server and rerun my server. Sometimes this actually happens due to syncing issues. So I'm just going to rerun my server. Okay. And yep, our server has been reloaded. All we just need to do is open up my page and reload this. And then when you come over to create products, we should now see the products page show this up. So now this is working, but we don't actually have a template for it. So for the templates, I want you to scroll down to the Z raw templates, and let's take the vendor create product. So just pick this up and we should put it in here in our own vendor app. And now we should have a template that does not look good. See? So to make this look good, you already know the drill. All you need to do is just add in the extends and also the end block. So this and this, I'm going to add it over here. I'm going to add it here and paste this, and let's see how it looks. So now when we reload the page, this looks way better. Very good. So now we could choose an image. I don't have an image, so I'll have to look up an image. So I could just take this and put it on my desktop, and yeah, we could work with that. Let me make sure it's not an AVIF file. No, it's not. So over here, we can choose a file, and good. The file shows up over here. So why is the file automatically previewing itself over here? That is because of the simple JavaScript code that we have added down here. Look at the simple function. It takes whatever file that we selected and it displays it on a page, on a div rather, that has an image tag and has an ID of image preview. See, we just basically add the preview.source to reader.result. Okay, just a very simple script that I have provided. All right, so let's add the sidebar. The sidebar is missing. So to do that, you need to grab one of these here and put it in the create product section here. So now when we reload, this should make more sense. Very good. Looks way better. Now let's try creating the products, but before that, let's look at everything that we have here. So method is post, multi-path form type is okay. Add your CSRF token. And for the image, you see this image preview is basically the one that we are using to show images when we select them, okay, to see the image that we just selected. All right. Then over here, we have this input to help us select an image with a name of, let's see. Okay. This one is basically the one that has the preview image function that we wrote down here that helps us preview images. Okay. you can see that it has a name of image. This name is basically what we are grabbing in our views here, request.files. So this name is for the product title. This category ID, let me show you. That category ID is here. But when you try previewing this on our page, you can't see anything here. That is because we need to run a loop for the category ID by saying for C in categories. Then we need to create a new option down here. I'm going to say option. And for this one, we just need to say c.title. So c.title. Let's see what we have. So I'm going to reload the page and let's see. Good. So now when you clicked on this, we can't really see anything. Do we even have any? Let me see if we even have any category in our admin at all. So now I'm trying to open up the categories here. And yep, we've got 2 categories, but why can't we see anything show up over here? Did we really reload this page? Okay. Maybe we've got an issue for ourselves. Now, what we can do is get back to our views and make sure that we passed in context here in the template. So we missed that, and that is why we're having an issue. Okay. So pass that in, and our server must have reloaded by now. Let's see. So I'm getting back to the create product and get back to the create product. Now we can see 2 cameras and computers. Very good. But what we want to do in the create product is make sure that the value over here is c.id. Why? So now this name here is category ID. In the views, it will receive it as category ID, and the value that will be stored here is whatever value that we select over here. So let's say we selected cameras, it's the value that will be stored here. But that value will be what? Is it going to be the text cameras? No. If you want it to be the text cameras, then in the value over here, you could say c.title, but I want to get the ID instead. Why? Because you can see that over here, clearly, we used ID to filter the category ID. So if this is an ID and category ID is a title, then it's not going to work. Okay. So you need to make sure that it's an ID. I hope that makes sense. So after you've done that, that is pretty much it. Let's also look at every other thing that we have. Description has a name of description. That is good. Regular price also has a name of regular price. And shipping, same thing. Stock, same thing. Button has a name of submit. All right, all this looks very good. All this looks very good. So let's try creating a new product. I'm going to choose an image, and I'm going to say, I don't know the versions of MacBook that are out right now, but I'm just going to say MacBook. Okay, I can see MacBook Pro inch here. Let me take this. I think I already created this, so I'm going to change the name. I'm just going to say MacBook Pro 14 inch M3. Is there an M4 now? I don't know. Let's just go with M4. Okay. And for this, I'm going to say computers. For the text over here, you could add some lorem ipsum text. Let me do that. I'm going to say lorem 100. Good. And I'm going to grab that and put it over here. In case you're wondering, in HTML, if you type lorem followed by any amount of character, maybe 80,000 or whatever amount of character you want. Okay, stopped in it. I think it stopped in 100,000 or so. Whatever character you add over there, it will go ahead and print that amount of lorem for you. Okay, so that is why I said lorem 80,000, lorem 100 rather, and I grabbed the 100. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm gonna put a regular price. I'm just gonna say, I don't know, 100 USD, and sale price I will say 70. I know that's not the real price of a MacBook, and it can never be, but I'm just putting that as a test price. Okay, for the shipping price of this, I will just say 5 USD, and let's say we have just 7 of this in stock. Then hit continue, and let's see what happens. All right, field ID expected a number but got dots. Which one is that? Yep, for the category. So let's make a category to be compulsory. A user must always choose category if they will be creating a product. So I'm going to scroll back to the section where we have categories, which is here. And for the select, I'm going to make this to be required. Very good. And now let's try this again. I will go back, and Now, okay, categories was actually selected. So what's wrong? Let's save this and see what happens. Field ID expected a number but got So you know what? We have c.id here, and I want to be sure that c.id is coming in from to the back end. So what I'm going to do is just log the category ID. Oh, not log, rather print. I'll be working with JavaScript a lot. That is why I used log instead of print. So I'm going to say category ID over here and let our Python server reload so we see what we have. So now that it's done, I'm going to get back here and save this again just to see what we have. Good. Now when we get back here, let's check our terminal and see what we have. Okay, see, category ID is null. It's not giving anything back to us. Let's make sure that it's called category ID in the templates for the create products. Okay. Yep, it sure is called category ID over here. That means something is wrong. What is it? Now we need to be sure that c.id actually stands for the category ID. So over here, I'm going to say c.id alongside the c.title. Now let's see if we actually see the IDs show up there. So, yep, 1 and 2 coming in perfectly well. So what is the issue? I'm going to stop my server again and rerun it just to make sure that everything is synced perfectly well. Okay. And there you go. So let's reload this again. And let's fill this up one more time. I'm going to select that and select any title over here in a category. I'm just going to put anything for the products, for the products description. So, this just reverted back to what we initially had, right? So I'm going to click on this just to make sure that the whole page is perfectly reloaded. Enter a product image, enter a product title, choose a category. I'm going to enter a description, enter a price, say 32, sale price, I'm just going to say 20, shipping fee 3, and then stock count 4, then we continue. All right, this makes more sense now. And when we come over to the products, we should now see that a new product has been created for us. That should be here. See this? MacBook Pro 14-inch. Very, very good. Whoops, a vendor wasn't added. So let's make sure that we add vendors when products get created. Over here, I'm going to duplicate the image and say vendor should be equal to requests.user. So this is going to fix that error for us. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is delete this product that we just created right now and recreate it so we see how it's going to add a vendor for us this time around. So when we get back here, I'm just going to go back to what we initially had, and I'm going to create a new product right now, and let's see how it handles this for us. Good. You can now see that we've added a vendor over here and we have all the informations for the products coming in. In fact, we should also have the image. Let me open this up so that we can see. So this is the image. When you open this on a new tab, you can clearly see the image showing up here. Very, very good. Very, very, very good. We have everything that we need. So the next thing over here is to update the products. That is why it's saying, yo, I'm not able to access the update product. So you can see that now we just created the product, but we are not choosing any variants, right? Why is that? That is because I will highly recommend we follow this route. And that is to make things very simple. Most of the time, I've noticed that if you want to create a product that has to do with variants and things like that, some applications or some websites out there allow you to actually create an instance first, which is what we've done. Create an instance of a product. Then for the variants, you should kind of like update the product instead of creating new ones. Don't worry, we'll talk about all this in the next one, and I will make sure to explain all that in detail because it might be a little bit tricky, and especially if this is your first time or maybe you don't have much experience with Django. That's what we're going to be talking about in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and learned something new. There are a lot of links in the description below that should help you become a better Django developer. So please make sure to check that out. I hope to see you in the next video, and until then, mad love. Peace out. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Destiny from Desphixs and welcome back to another video in the e-commerce project using Django. In this one, we'll get started updating the products here in Django. That is what we'll be working on. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. So let's get started. So we'll start off by writing the views. So I'll open up my code editor and close up everything that we have over here now, leaving only the views. Okay, so let's get started with this. I'm going to say at login required, and over here we define a new view that is called updates underscore product. Now this one is going to take requests and also ID. And since we will be updating a product, we need to fetch that product that we will be updating. So we need to say products should be equal to, then we could say store models dot products dot objects dot get. And what do we want to get? Vendor should be equal to request dot user, and ID should be equal to ID. Good. So we want to do exactly the same thing that we have here. I'm just going to take all this code all the way to here, and I'm going to put it just down here, just like this. Let me close this up so we have more room to work with. Okay, and now I'm going to remove this. So all we need to say now is products dot name, not products, okay, but just products like this. So products dot name should be equal to name. We will do this for category, description, price, regular price, shipping and stock. So we'll do this for description, price, regular price, shipping and stock. I'm gonna take that and put it down here. 1 2 3 4 5. So put it down here. Same goes for this. All right, and also we need to do the same thing for, oh my bad, over here we need to say this. Okay, then for this one I'm just gonna say products dot category should now become the new category that we might be updating to. Okay, now for the image we need to update it like this. If only a user has selected a new image, that is when we want to say products.image should be equal to image. Okay, so here's what's going on. Now we perform the same operation that we used to get the product informations when a user wants to update. It's the same thing with creating and updating, but what we are doing over here is, instead of creating a new product like we did here, we are rather updating this one that we fetched over here. So you can see that this one that we fetched using the get method is one single product. So what we are doing is saying, hey, this product over here, update its name with whatever name that the vendor has given us while trying to update the products. So that is why we did all this over here and then updated it over here. And for the image, based on the fact that every time a user submits this, so every time a user submits the form to update a product, it will keep sending this image here. So we want to particularly check if the image was appended by the vendor, and that is only when we want to go ahead and update the image. After you have done all this, just say products.save. Good. So here comes the tricky part. Now let's write this code, and this is the step that we're going to take. I'll write the code, then I will explain what it does. So we are starting with the variants. To create variants, I'm going to say variants underscore IDs should be equal to requests dot post dot get lists dot get list. And what do we want to get in the list? It should be variants underscore ID, then a list over here. Now please do the same thing, but instead of ID it should be variant underscore title. Okay, we need the same thing here to variant titles. Good. So what is going on over here? The following two lines, all they will do is retrieve data from a post request that will be sent from the client, which will be the front end, where we'll have the update HTML code. So this first one here, variant ID request.post.getList variant ID, this line will retrieve all the values that is associated with the key for the variant ID from the post data. What does that mean? That means when we want to start creating variants, we will be creating a lot of items in the variants by clicking on the add more button, right? So when you click on an add more button, this is what will happen. Our application, we create variants, should be variant ID should be equal to, and when you add a new variant, it will immediately add an ID for their variant, 101 like this, or 102 like this. Same thing is going to happen for title. So it will automatically add titles like this, maybe small, maybe you're adding for size, small, medium. So what our application will do is go into our front end and grab any list that has the variant IDs as a name. Now this will be stored in this format. So whatever we get over here will be stored in an array like this. Okay, so that is basically what this lines of code we do. This variant ID with this list appended here is just the name of an input field in the form where multiple files or multiple data will be selected and sent. Okay, and this get list that we have over here is a method that will return a list of all the values that has been appended to this key called variant ID, which you can represent with variant formats. Okay, so let me reiterate again. In the HTML for the updates product, we will have a form with a simple input field that will allow you to add more when you click on it. So when we click on add more, it will keep creating new forms for us. Each and every one of the variants or the data that is typed into those forms will be stored in a list, right? Imagine that you're trying to create variants for a size. All the whole variant items like small, medium, large, extra large, all of them will be stored in a list. So that is basically what this does. Now we want to make sure that we associate that list with an ID and actually its titles. Okay, so this is the format that this will be stored in. Now this here is just an example, so I will get rid of it. Okay, and what our application will then do is this: variant ID 101 like this will link to variant title small, so that whenever we make reference to variant ID 101, we will be making reference to variant title small. Let's continue and maybe we'll better understand. Now we need to check, hey, if variant IDs and variant titles exist. So if they actually exist, let's now go ahead and loop through the variants. What we will say is for I in, okay, I want to say for I and variant underscore ID in enumerate variant IDs. I will pass, so I'll explain what it's doing. So let me explain what this is doing. This for loop basically that we have over here will iterate over the list of the variant IDs. Remember, it's an ID that will hold maybe 101, 102, 103, just an ID of whatever item has been added over there. Now, these variant IDs will contain the IDs of different products variants like small, medium, large, extra large, and so on. I over here that we said for I represents index, which is going to start from 0 of the current variant in the list. And the variant ID that we have over here represents the actual ID of the variant. So this loop will execute for each element in the variant IDs, allowing us to process each variant separately. What does this mean? This means that over here, remember the example that I gave with the variant IDs. Let me do that again. Variant underscore IDs is going to look something like this: 101 and 102 and so on, 102 and so on, right? Now variant titles, variant underscore titles also will look like this: small, and make sure to close that up. And also I want to have something like medium, make sure to close that up, and so on. Okay, so what our application will do is this I will basically be this index here, and this variant ID will basically be the actual ID of the variants. Okay, this I here is just an index. What does this mean? Hopefully you already know that in programming, items in a list actually have their positioning in index, which means 101 here starts from 0, 102 starts from 1, and so on. So this I keeps track of the index of whatever we have in the variant ID, which maybe might be 0 or 1, 2, 3, 4, and so. This variant ID keeps track of the actual item over here. So if you've, for any reason, studied DSA, which is data structures and algorithm, then you must have probably come across this in the past, okay? So this is basically why we are running the for I and variant in enumerating this. So whenever you say enumerate, it will return the index and also the actual value back to you, okay? So that is why we are doing this. Now, after we've done this, let's go ahead and create a new variable, and I'm going to call this one variant name, and set it to variant titles. Then I will grab I. Guys, this is actually very simple. So let me explain what went on here. We just defined a new variable, variant name. And what we want it to hold is, whenever we loop through this, when we are in I, remember that it's going to hold the index of one of these, right? So what we are saying is, hey, whenever we have looped through this, go over to the list of all the variant titles and grab the index of whichever one matches the I index here. For example, if we are in the index of 0, it will grab small. If we are in the index of 1, it will grab medium and set it to this variant name. Does this make sense? Because I over here represents 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to whatever item we have. But variant ID represents 101, 102, 103 for the actual IDs. But variant title here is just a list that also has its own positioning. So what we are saying is, hey, whenever we loop through an instance of the variant IDs, go ahead and find what index we are on in the variant titles, grab it and save it in this name over here. That is basically what we are doing. Now, after we've done that, we just need to check for something. And what is that? You need to check if variant ID actually exists, which is this variant ID here. See, that is actually the 101, 102, 103. The main thing you should understand here is that I represents index, the variant ID represents the actual value. Okay, so if the variant ID exists, what does that mean? It means that we might have this particular variant already stored in the database. Does this make sense? So we don't want to keep creating new items if we are trying to update. So imagine that you have small, medium, and large, and for some reason you want to update medium to extra large. Do you want it to go ahead and create a new extra large while still leaving the medium? No, you want it to update the medium to extra large, which would then be small, extra large, and so on. But without you following this step, it will just skip the medium and totally ignore the fact that you're supposed to update the medium and just create a new one for you, which will make it to have a very long list that will not be editable. So what we are checking is this: hey, if variant ID actually exists, that means it must exist in the database. So let's fetch it from the database by saying variant should be equal to store models dot variant dot objects, whoops, not that, dot objects dot filter by, and what do we want to filter by? Say ID should be equal to then the variant ID. Good. And grab the very first item that matches this query. Then now you need to update it by saying, hey, if this variant actually exists in the database, what do I want to do? Update it. Say variant.name should be equal to variant name. Good. And then you can save. Say variant dot save. So what we did over here was just update an existing variant that exists in our database. Very good. So what if for any reason the variant ID does not exist? What do we do? Which is an else over here. Now let's go ahead and create that new variant, which means it didn't exist in the database, right? See, variant ID here does not exist. What do? We go ahead and create a new item in the database by saying variant should be equal to store models dot variant dot objects dot create, And what do we want to create? Products should be equal to products, and also name should be equal to what? Can you guess what it's going to be? If you said variant name, then you got it right. Okay, that is because remember that variant name over here is what loops through this list of items that we have here to grab a particular name from here. Does that make sense? That is why we are saying name should be variant name. Very, very good. Now we need to get out of the if statement, if and else. Let me add some spaces here so that you don't get confused. Get out of this if and else, and now we need to handle items for the variant. What we have just been handling so far is the variant itself. Now let's handle variant items. So for variant items, I'm going to say items underscore IDs should be equal to, then we just need to get it from requests.post.get list, because it won't be just one item, it will be in a list, just like I've explained. And then I'll use an F formatted string because I want to say item underscore ID underscore, then over here I'm going to pass in I, then grab the list. Is this confusing? Please let it not confuse you, because this over here looks exactly like this. The only difference with this one is each item ID is linked to a variance, right? So small, medium, whatever is linked to a size variant, right? Green, pink, yellow is linked to a color variant. So each item ID is linked to a particular variant. That is why you can clearly see that we are still in a for loop here, which means when we go through a loop and we find to see if a variant exists. If it doesn't exist, we create a new one. If it exists, we update. When we have done this, we also need to work on that particular variant items. That is why we are doing this. So what we did over here is this item underscore ID underscore. This I is basically used to represent the current variant that we are working for over here. Now this will be passed to us from the client, which is the update products HTML file that we will have in the future. I'll show you how that's going to work. So this line over here, what it basically does is retrieve all the values that is associated with the key item ID I, then this list. This I now might be maybe 101. So if it's 101, we know, oh yeah, it is item ID for size, or it is item ID for color. So we know what variant that we are trying to interact with over here. Does this make sense? The value of I that we have over here is the index of the current variant, just like I've said, and it is used to dynamically create key for each variant. For example, for the first variant, which is going to be I equal to 0, right, which is the index, the key will become item ID, then we have 0, then a list over here. Now, this is how we will be able to know what variants we should be interacting with. So this over here lets us know, hey, you are in the color variant or you are in the size variant. If the second one is size, this is going to be 0, 1. So as soon as we see 1, we know what variant we are interacting with. That is basically why we have this I showing up over here. Okay. So all these are used when there will be multiple items, e.g. size, colors, specifications, and a lot of variants, okay? Then finally, this get list over here, just like I've said before, is a method that we use to return a list for all the items ID that will be submitted when we want to create a new or update a new variant. Does this make sense at all? Now, just the same way we've done for the IDs, we also need to do for the titles. So you need to say item titles. Please, it's item and not items. So item titles should be what? The same thing. Item underscore title underscore. Then we have this I over here plus this list that is showing up here. Very good. Based on the fact that variant items have descriptions, we also need to do the same thing to get the description. Okay. So this should be item underscore description. Very good. So when we have done all this, what we are basically doing is getting all the item IDs, title, and description that is associated with the particular variant that we are currently updating while we are in the loop. Does this make sense? So now that we have done all this, we need to write some very basic conditional statements that checks if item IDs and item titles and item description. Then what do we want to do? So this over here, very simple. It checks if all the three lists for the item IDs, item titles, and items description, if they are not empty, then we perform some operation. So this condition over here will ensure that the data for the items over here are available before we start trying to access and run any kind of process on it. And if any of the lists are empty, the code inside the block here will not run. It will prevent errors from accessing the process. So if for any reason any of this over here is none, which means it doesn't exist, the code in here will not run, which will prevent us from accessing an error or from getting an error because we are trying to process a data that is missing. Does that make sense? So after all this have been checked to see if they exist, now you need to run another loop, which is for j in range of length of the item underscore titles. And over here, I'm going to pass. Ooh, that actually sounded like a lot, right? But let me explain what's going on. Remember that over here, we are in a loop. Now, there is another nested loop in here. Why is that? That is because, let me pull up my paint environment so that I can better explain this visually so that everyone can understand. So, what is going on here is this. We have a, let me pull up my shapes. So, we have a variant here that is called a size or a color or whatever you want to call it. So, this is how it looks. We have one full product that has maybe I don't know, a color and also a size. So this one over here is a what? Let's just say it's a size variant, and this one over here is a what? Let's say it's a color variant. So when we loop through, which is this first for I over here, what we are doing is going through the whole variant, which is the size and the color. So when we go through the size, we perform some operations, then we go to the color, we perform some operations. But now it gets tricky because each and every one of these variants also have variant items in them that also needs operations to be performed on them, right? So what we do is this: when we come over to the size to run some actual code or to run some logic, we still need to go ahead and run some more logic in each and every one of those items that we have over here. So we run for this, we run for this, we run for this, we run, and when we have exhausted each and every one of this here, we move over to the next one. So the next one, color, might also have its own item IDs that we need to work with, maybe green, purple, yellow, magenta, pink, blue, red, whatever color, while the size might have small, extra small, extra extra small, large, medium, large, extra extra large, and so on. So this outer loop, which is this one, which is this one, and this one, is the for I here. But this smaller ones in here that we are running is the for j that we have over here. So we need to run for all these ones and check, hey, if an ID exists for this already, then that means it already exists in the database. Go ahead and update it. If no ID exists, that means it's new. Because no ID exists, then go ahead and do what? Create a new file. So that is the reason for running a loop. Does this make sense? Now, you might be like, okay, Destiny, I understand what you just said, but what does the range, len, item titles mean? It's actually just a lot. I don't think I can understand this. Well, it's actually simple. Remember, I said that this loop basically iterates over the item titles that we have over here. I just quickly had to pause the video and create some lists over here that I will use for explanation. So let me create Python multi-line comments and paste the simple list that I have created over here. Hopefully you can clearly see this list. Okay, this is going to enable me to better explain it for you. Okay, so now what this loop is going to do here is loop through three items. Why? Because we have the small, medium, and large. So when we say for j in range of length of item titles, and item titles is small, medium, and large, it will loop through 3 items, right? Now on the first iteration, when it goes to the first item here, say this one, let me go back. So when it comes over to this first item here, which is number 1, what is going to happen? So in that first one, it will now say, hey, item IDs 0 is equal to 101, item title 0 is equal to small, and items description 0 is equal to small size description. I don't know if this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, let me explain again. Now, based on the fact that we are looping through this 1, 2, and 3 items here for the item titles, the len basically calculates what the length of this array is, and it knows that we are looping through three types of data here, which is 1, 2, 3 for the small, medium, and large. Now in here, let me write out the next code that we need. I will use it to explain. The next codes here will be item underscore ID should be equal to item underscore IDs, then we grab J. Same thing is going to happen for the titles and the descriptions. So over here, I'm going to have the titles, and over here, I'm going to have the descriptions. So same thing here and here. But what I just need is here description, here title, here description. Good. So this one is going to be this one here. Make sure that it's called descriptions, okay? And yep, that's it. That is why we have description here. So what exactly is going to go on now with everything that we have written? Now, using this, it will now become more clearer for us to understand how this is going to work. Please, I want you to change this item titles to item title, okay? And let me just make sure that all this looks good before I start explaining. This one is going to be item description. Okay, the only thing we need to change is the descriptions here. See, we said if item.ids, titles, and descriptions here, because we added an S here, okay? Now, when all these are grayed out, then we are good to go. I hope that makes sense. So this is what's going on. On the first iteration, we say item IDs J. Now, item IDs J is as well as saying item IDs 0, right? Which is the 0 that we have over here. Remember, it's going to be 0, 1, and 2. 0, 1, and 2. 0, 1, and 2 for the index positioning. Please, if you don't know what index positioning are, you need to look it up on Google and better understand how it works. So what we do here is say items ID J, which is basically what J is going to be holding. J is going to either hold 0, 1, or 2. Now, when we're at item ID 0, or when we're at item ID 1, what it will do is this. Item ID 0, automatically, this item ID is kind of like saying, hey, I want to be 101, okay? So this item ID 0 is 101, which is this one over here. Now, item titles J is as well as saying item titles 0. In this case, that one is going to be what? Small. Do you see it? Small. And same thing happens for J. J is as well as saying 0. In this case, this one is going to be small size description. Let me show you. Small size description. Now we hop over to the second iteration because we have 3 items here. 1, 2, 3. That is because we are looping through with length. So on the second iteration, this will now be items ID 1, items titles 1, items description 1. And instead of 101, it will now be 102. And instead of small, it will now be medium over here. And also, this is going to be medium size description, and so on for the item IDs 3, right? Now, after all this have been set, that means each and every one of these item IDs here holds a value, which is either going to be 101 small and the description, or 102 medium and its description. Does that make sense? But instead of writing this, it's very redundant this way. We have to dynamically get the code. That is why we are passing in J. Take note that J is what keeps track of either it's 0 or either it's 1 or either it's 2, because it's going to loop through this length and hold its index instead. Okay, does this make sense? So when you have done all this, what you now need to do is quite simple. You just need to check if item underscore ID actually exists, which means it's not null. Then that means this item actually already exists in the database. All we just need to do is update it. So we need to fetch that variant item by saying variant item should be equal to store underscore models dot variant underscore item dot objects dot filter. And then what do we want to pass in there? ID should be equal to item ID and get the first one. So this is just normal Django. Okay, now you need to check, hey, if the variant ID if the variant item actually did exist in the database, just like I predicted using my code, then I want to update it. So say variant item dot title should be equal to item title. Why? Remember that the item title holds whether it's small, medium, or large. So that is why we are updating the variant item title with the item title that we're grabbing over here. Same thing is also going to happen for the description. So variant item dot description. And did we actually create description? Let me see. Oh, it's called content. Okay, yeah, it's called content, my bad. So variant item dot content should be what? Item description that we have over here. Does that make sense? And after you have done this, you then need to go ahead and save by saying variant item dot save. And after you have done that, that is pretty much what we want to do. Okay, now the next thing is checking if this item doesn't actually exist in the database. So if for any reason we don't have this item in the database, then what do we want to do? In that case, we want to say store models dot variant item dot objects dot. Can you guess what we are going to do if we don't already have that variant item in the database? We create it. So if it doesn't exist, then we create it. So to create it, you know that since the variant item, it must always have this variant foreign key here, right? So you need to say, hey, I want to populate the variant with the, yep, there you go. This is it over here. So we want to populate it with either this or this. Remember, we've done that at the top. So we say variant should be equal to variant. And also I'm going to say title should be equal to item underscore title. And also contents should be equal to item underscore description. Very, very good, guys. Very, very good. In fact, we have almost come to the end. So the only thing we need to do now is get out of the for loop. So you remember the overall for loop that we initially had all the way at the top. We need to get out of there now. And how do we do that? So scroll all the way to the top and minimize this for loop. You see this if statement. We need to get below this if statement to write some code. So how do we do this? Now I'm going to track this for loop all the way to this section here and come all the way to the back. Okay, so when you're all the way at the back, then please close this up again so that we can use our sense to eyeball where the if statement stopped. So wherever the if statement stopped is where we want to go ahead and actually do something, which is handle products gallery images, because we have two things over here that we'll be looping through. One is going to be the gallery images. Another one is going to be the variant. The gallery images does not have nested models like the variant, so it's not going to be as difficult as the variant. Okay, how do we do this one for the product images? Just say for file underscore key, I'm going to call it that, and image underscore file, which is the actual image, in requests dot files dot items. So why are we saying request the files the items? Now that is because we'll be grabbing multiple image. So what this line over here will do is this. Very simple. It will loop or iterate over the items in the request.files. Based on the fact that product gallery or product images won't just be one simple thumbnail, but maybe 5 or 6 images that actually shows more detail to the product or more detail about the product. It will be stored in items. So what we are doing over here is this, looping through the items that we have stored in the request files when we selected the products images in the front end. So after we have done that, what are we going to do? But before that, the file key over here is basically the name of the input field, which might be image 1, image 2, or image 3. And the image file is kind of like the actual image object, which is the image that was uploaded. Okay, the image that can be seen. But the key is just the way we used to identify the actual inputs. Okay, so over here, let's write a very tricky code that says if file underscore key dot starts with so if it starts with image underscore, what does this actually mean? Now, remember that I said that the file key over here is what actually keeps the name of the input field. Now, the input field will be returning data that looks like this. Let me show you. So when we select one image, it will return the image in a name that looks like this: image underscore 1, image underscore 2, image underscore 3, image underscore 4, and so on. So this is how it's going to keep track of keys for images to know what image we have selected, right? So what we are checking is, hey, if this file key actually starts with image underscore, do you see image underscore? Now we're checking, hey, if the file key starts with image underscore, that means something is going on. And what we are doing over here is identifying the dynamically added image inputs that we added in the front end. What does that mean? Remember that if you're going to be creating an image, you will have to click on add more, add more, add more, add more. Each of those inputs will be given a name, right? Each of those names that we're giving to that input will have to be dynamic so that we know what image was added and what image we will be grabbing from the back end. Now, those images are stored in the file key here, and this is how the key looks. Now we are checking if this key starts with image underscore, then yeah, it's actually a key. In that case, what we just want to do is this: go ahead and create that image in the back end or in the database by saying store models dot gallery dot objects dot create. What do we want to create over here? Product should be product, and image should be image underscore file. Why is this? This is because we are in a loop. Okay, so you should actually know that each of this will be iterated through. When we iterate through the first one, we save its image file in the database. We go to the second one, we save its image file in the database till we go through all the images that were selected by the vendor. Does this make sense? So after all this has been done, all we just need to do is go ahead and show the vendor a success message because the battle has been won. They have successfully created a new product. So all we just need to say is down here, return redirects, and we're going to say return them to vendor update products, and we just need to say products.id. Very, very good. And you also don't need to forget to actually, you can show a message though, like you can show a message like products updated. So let me show that. This one is up to you though. If you don't want to show it, it's totally up to you. So you could say messages.success, and I'm gonna pass in a request over there and basically just say products updated successfully. So products updated successfully. Very good. So if you've been able to get to this section, then a very big congratulations to you. Okay, and let's create contexts. Very first thing I want to pass into this context is going to be the product. So product, and I need, I think, 3 more. I also need the categories. Please put that down here also. Categories. Whoops, am I fetching the categories? Well, I don't think so. So remember that we fetched the categories over here. We need to do exactly the same thing here. Okay, then make sure that you're passing it in the context, and also we want to pass in the variant in the context. So variants, and for you to get the variants, just say store model, fetch it directly from the database. Store model dot variant dot objects dot filter by product should be equal to products, which is basically getting all the variants that is associated with one particular product. Okay, and after we have gotten that, let's also go ahead and get the gallery images by saying gallery underscore images, and all we need to do is the same thing: store models dot gallery dot objects dot filter by what? And I'm going to say products should be equal to products. All good. And after we have done all this, we just have to say return render. And then in here, I'm going to pass in requests. And then I'm going to say vendor slash update underscore products dot HTML. And please do not forget to pass in the context into the template again. Okay. So after you've done that, well, that was quite a tough battle. Now we have 4 more things to create. One of them is going to be a way that we can use to delete variants. Another is going to be to delete the variant items. Another will be to delete product images. And finally, to delete the products themselves. So let's begin by actually creating the delete variant function. I'm going to say delete variants. It will take in requests. It will also take in product ID and also the variant underscore ID. Very good. And over here, we need to say products should be equal to store models dot products dot objects dot get. And we are trying to get one product now, which is going to be ID should be equal to the product ID at the top. Very good. And after this, let's go ahead and fetch the particular variant that we want to delete. So we just need to say variant should be equal to store model dot, then this should be variant dot objects dot get, where variant, rather what I'm supposed to say is where ID is equal to variant ID, and also product underscore underscore vendor is equal to the request dot user, and product itself is equal to product. Good. So take a close look at this. What we are saying here is, hey, fetch all the, rather not fetch all, my bad, fetch the particular product in the database that has its ID as this product ID that we will be passing when we call the delete variant. And after you have fetched that product, go ahead and fetch one variant over here. You can call this variant, okay, without the S, and nothing is going to happen. Okay, so go ahead and fetch one variant using the get method, where the ID of the variant matches the variant ID that we will also pass in as a value when we call the delete variant function, which is this. And also make sure that the product underscore underscore vendor is equal to request.user and the product is equal to product. All this is to further make the query more tight so that the vendor don't end up deleting another vendor's variants. Okay, so after you have done this, all you just need to do is say variant.delete. So variant.delete, and we should be done. Now you can go ahead and return JSON response, and for this one you should say message should be what, and I just want to say variant deleted. So once we say variant deleted, that is everything that we want to do. Now go to the top and import the JSON response. So I'm going to say from Django.http, I want to import the JSON response. Very good. So let's get back to the bottom here where we used it. Good. If you've done this, big congratulations to you. That is exactly what we wanted. Now I want to delete a variant item and I don't want to have to type all this out, so I'll just duplicate, okay, and call this one delete variant items or item. Okay, then over here what I just want to pass in is variant ID. Oh, we already have that over there, and also item ID, because this one now we're trying to delete one item. Variant is like color, then variant item is like whether we're trying to delete the green color or the yellow color or the pink color and so on. So this time around we don't even need to fetch the product anymore, just fetch only the variant. But for the fetching of the variants, remove this. We don't need this query anymore. Okay, all you just need to do is fetch it this way. Now what we only need to fetch here now is item, by saying item should be equal to store model dot variant item dot objects dot get, where the variant underscore, now not variant underscore, where the variant is equal to the variant, and also the ID is equal to the item underscore ID. Very good. So after you have done this one, then go ahead and say item.delete. Then what you want to say over here is variant item deleted. Very good. So if you want, you could capitalize it. It's up to you how you want to write this, okay? And getting to the final one, not final, second to the last, we are trying to delete the product image. So I'm going to duplicate this one with, again, the variant delete, and I'm going to change it to delete underscore product underscore image. Very good. It's going to take in requests, product ID, and also, most importantly, the image ID. Good. We fetch product again, just like we've initially fetched a product. And this time around, instead of fetching variants, we need to fetch an image. So we will say image should be equal to store models dot gallery dot objects dot get, where the particular ID is equal to the image. So what does that mean? Where the ID is equal to the image ID, and also the product linked to the image is equal to the products that we just fetched over here. Is it complex? I don't think it should be. We are just creating normal Django query over here. Okay. So let's say image.delete. What I even think it's complex is the logic to update the products. That is the most complex thing over here. In fact, in the whole course, that is the most complex thing. So what we just need to say here now is products image deleted. Very good. And after you've done that, let's go ahead and delete a product. So you could duplicate this if you want, and instead of calling it delete products image, you could just call it delete products. Remove the image ID, we don't need that. Remove the image filtering and just change image.delete to products.delete. And over here, you just need to say products deleted, and we should be good to go. Now, I think the only thing that we might need to do here is, instead of returning JSON response for the product delete, instead return redirect, because the product is gone. We don't want to start using JSON to actually fetch anything. Just return the vendor back to the products page so they can see all the products or create a new one if they wish to. Very good, guys. Let's see if we have any error. All right, we don't have any error for now. This is all good. So open up your URLs PY and save this new view that we created as updates. Whoops, not coupon, but instead updates products. And also it should be the same thing here, and also the same thing here. The only difference with this one is that this over here has got to be ID. Good. Let's see if our server has reloaded. I'm going to break my server and reload it again, just to make sure that everything is synced. So after you have done all this, now if we get back to our browser here and reload this page, let's see what happens. I think it will try recreating the product again, right? And then there you go, it redirected us back to this page, but I highly believe it's tried recreating their product. See, yep, it did, because that is not Django's normal behavior. When you resubmit a form, not even Django, I think programming in general, when you resubmit a form, it actually reruns whatever logic that you have over there. But now if you reload this, it's not going to recreate the product. So what we need to do now is create this update product HTML. So to do that, open up your code, and in the raw templates, grab the update product and put it in your own products templates. Good. And when you reload, we should have an ugly looking template just like this. So what we got to do for this one is change it up a little bit. So we just need to minimize this and open up one of this, maybe the reviews or whichever one you want. Grab the extents and the end block and just put it over here, here and here, then save. Another thing that we'll be needing is the sidebar. So make sure that you're also grabbing the sidebar from here and you're putting the sidebar here. Okay. And after you have done that, let's go ahead and reload this code. Very good. Looks way more better now, right? I think so. I think it does. So you can see this is our variant, and this is what I have set up for everyone. So you don't need to stress yourself structuring the UI anymore. The UI have been structured for you. Okay. Now, in a very short time, we will start creating JavaScript to add all this. Now, I could as well just copy the JavaScript and paste it, but that would be very, very unfair. And that is because the JavaScript that is used to perform this operation is actually very lengthy and quite tricky. So I would like to explain it step by step so that everyone can follow along, since this is one of the most requested tutorials that I have gotten on the channel. So I wouldn't like to do any copy and paste, but I would like to explain everything one by one. Because after this, I don't know the next time we might work with any nested variants or any tricky nesting like this. So that is why I made sure that I'm including all examples where we work with a nesting, so that is why I made sure to include all the examples, like where we work with adding one and also adding nested ones, and also things like images, so that you can work with creating maybe an LMS application for a learning management system, and you will know how to add courses and things like that. Okay, so this one tutorial should be just a one go for everything that you might need in the future for multiple forms, just like the Django admin gives us. That is exactly what we are doing over here. Good, let's start formatting everything that we have over here, and after that we will then have to start writing the JavaScript. Okay, so back to my code, I'm going to close this and also close this because I need some more room to work with here. And we need to change up a couple of things. For example, this input here, please, it should become a CSRF token. And what else do we need? Basic informations. This source here should become products.image.url, and let's see what we have. So now when you reload, we should see, good, that is what we have. And also same thing is going to happen for the title. So the product title, where is it? Right, give this input a value of products.title, rather its name, my bad, it's called name. Now we should see it's been prefilled in the input over here. Very good. So after you have prefilled it like this, the next thing is going to be for the categories, right? Remember that it was dynamically added. So all you need to say is over here, loop through or C in categories. Then you need to create a new option here and say c.id. And over here, you need to say c.title. But if we reload this now, it fetches all the category for us. But we want to actually select the exact category that was selected when this product was created. So how do we do that? But before we start, remove this other spilled option here. To do what I just said right now, you need to write an if statement in here and say, hey, if c.title is equal to the current product.category.title, then please, I want you to make it selected. And after that, let's save our code. Our code seems not to be saving. So what's going on? Let me see if this is the issue. Okay, I think that was the issue, guys. So please, let's put this on one line to make sure that everything is arranged. So we see why Prettier isn't working. One line, okay? One line for everything. So if, I think this here is just the issue, okay? Yep, that is just the issue. Please don't mind that. If c.title, oh, I think remove one of this equal to, we should have just two. But even with that, it will still break. See, Prettier isn't working. That is because this is not a HTML code. Even though it works, but it's not, okay? But if you get back here now and reload, you should be able to see it select cameras. Okay, do we actually select cameras when we created that product? Did we? Oh yeah, see, cameras is the category. Very good. Also for the products description, we should have in here, it should be products.content. So products, okay, my bad, it's description. I'm mistaking it for the variants item, so it's description. Now we can see all those description coming in here. And we also need to do the same thing for the regular price. So you just need to say products.regular price. So I'm gonna say products.regular price, and we got to do the same thing too for the actual price itself. So down here, this one is just going to be products.price, and we got to do the same thing for the shipping also. So products dot shipping, and finally for the stock counts, products dot stock. All right, so if you've done that, that is everything. When you reload this page, we should be able to see everything coming in perfectly well as expected, right? Yep, that is it. So now when you make sure that the form button has a type of submit and everything looks good, which means we can now update this product. So we could say MacBook Pro 14-inch M2, let's just say M2, and save. Okay, good. Variant ID placeholder. Oh wow, yeah. That is because immediately the back end is now trying to process the variant items, but we still have all this code over here that hasn't been updated, that are just still placeholders. Okay, so before we start updating the products, let's work with the variants, and yep, we continue from there. Okay, so here is how it goes. Firstly, we have this input here with the type of hidden that has the name of variant ID and this. Remember when we called this in our views py here? Do you remember? This is how we grabbed it from the front end. A lot of lists will be stored in here. And do you remember when we did this one also? I knew it was confusing then. It might still be confusing now, but that is basically it. Okay. So after we've added these two things, that is for the variant IDs and also for the variant item title. Then we have a button over here that most importantly has the class of remove variant, which we will use to remove variants. Okay, but for now you don't need to stress yourself about this. All we need to do is perform some simple operations like add data attributes. So for the remove one, I'm gonna say data dash product underscore ID should be what? Product dot ID. And also we need the variant item. So data dash variant underscore ID should be what? Variant dot ID. When you have done that, that is pretty much everything that we need to do for this ones. Okay, and don't worry, I'll show you what's gonna happen. That is because we have to loop. So let's see this one. Okay, this looks good, but before we continue with this, let's loop. Now just below the variant container, minimize this and then write a for loop here. Say for variant in variant. Now remember that in the views py we are passing in variants over here, see, so that we can access it in the template. That is why we are looping through it over here. Take this end4 and wrap it across this one over here, and you could indent this to make it look good. Okay, and when you've looped through that first one, you could go ahead and also loop through the sub items. So just below this comment, also you need to say for item in, then what you want to pass in here is for item in variants underscore, my bad, that's going to be variants dot variant underscore items dot all. Very good. Now take this end4 and wrap it across this div like this. Good. And after wrapping it across it, that is pretty much everything that we want to do. Now if you get back here and just reload this whole page, you won't be able to see anything yet. That is because we don't actually have any variants, right? But let's actually create a variant over here from the admin to see what we have. So I'm gonna add an image or maybe two images just to see what we have. Okay, I'm gonna add this image and also add some variants, color and size, and I'm gonna save this. So after that, open up the variants. You can see that over here now we have color and size for the MacBook Pro 14-inch. Now I want you to open this up. Okay, for the size, let's add some size. I want to keep it very simple and say small, which is SM, and for content I'm just gonna say SM like this. Okay, then save. This one is the color. I'm just gonna say green over here, green, and the same thing here, green. Good. Gonna save this also, and when we get back here and reload, now we can see that hey, we have two variants. Very good. Very, very good actually. And in fact, if you take this a step further and say, you know what, for the size, I'm going to add another one here, maybe say extra large, and over here also extra large, and save this. If you get back here, oops, what are all this? Let me close this. If you get back here and reload, you should now see that one of the variants is going to have double items. See, 1, 2, 1, 2, but this one has only one. That is because the size has small and extra large. In fact, enough talking, let's go ahead and change the values so that you can see them in real time. So for the main loop, for the variance loop, if you want to change it up so that you can see something, what you actually want to do is this. Over here that we have variant ID placeholder, make sure that you replace it with what? Variant.name. Replace it with variant.name. That is the first thing. And oh, I think I just mistyped this. This one is for the ID, okay? Replace the ID one with variant.id and replace the inputs one with the name, add a value of variant.name. This is variant ID, this is variant name. Good. So now when you reload this, you should now proudly see color, then size over here. Now to change the informations for this one so that we display them accurately, what you need to do is in here for the item IDs, the one that starts with 0, you can see that we clearly have this item ID 0 over here. Now it's not going to be like this anymore. It's going to be a little bit different. Replace this 0 keyword that we have here with Django variable tag and say for loop dot parent loop dot counter. Good. So Django actually gives us this loop over here, for loop counter, that help us count how many items we have currently in a for loop, and it starts from 1. What does that look like? Let me show you. So over here we have size and color. Size is going to be counted as item number 1, and this one is going to be counted as item number 2. But based on the fact that this item IDs is being used here in the back end, let me show you. So here in the back end or in the server, you can see that we are using it clearly over here. Can you see? And I think there is somewhere, yes, here. See, we are using it over here. That means we actually need to change the index to start from 0 instead of 1. Oh my, I'm very sure that this might be very confusing. Let me explain. So over here, we are totally expecting this list to hold index positions of 0, 1, 2, right? But on the other hand, Django for loop does not start with 0, 1, 2. It starts with 1, 2, 3, which is going to cause a very big problem for us over here. So we need a way to automatically tweak or manipulate Django for loop to now start with what it usually does not start with. So we want it to now start with 0, 1, 2, which will match up with the logic that we have written here. So to do this, all you need to do is, after you have said for loop.parentsLoop.counter, append 0 over here. What is parents loop? Parents loop doesn't really care about the current loop that we are in. Instead, it will get the item or the count of this parents loop over here. Remember, this is first loop and this is the second loop or the nested loop. Now this is the parents loop, this is the child loop. Okay, so what we're basically doing is getting the parents loops counter. Does this make sense at all? I hope it does. So after you've done this, make sure to replace the value that says item ID placeholder, replace it with item.id. Very good. And after you have done that, I believe that is all for now, apart from the fact that you need to take this parents loop thing that we currently have and we need to put it in a couple more places, like here. So wherever we have this title 0, description 0, please replace it. It's very easy to, you know, make the code here not work. Once you miss one thing, everything is not going to work and you technically spend days trying to fix it. So please make sure that you are looking closely into all this. Okay, I'm also going to create values over here and say item.title, but this one should be item.content. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Also, for the trash button, we need to make sure that we have a class of remove item, and we also need to make sure that we have a data attribute that says, hey, I want to pass in the variant ID like this. Variant underscore ID. I don't want to copy and paste anything so that we don't break something. Then variant dot ID. Wrap it in Django variables. And also you need to pass the item ID. So data item underscore ID would be equal to item dot ID. Good. Are you still following along, or is it becoming very, very confusing? Well, if it's becoming very, very confusing, I totally understand where you're coming from, because the very first time I started learning how to use Django loops, I think that should be 2 or 3 years ago. That was the first time I started getting into Django loop. Guys, trust me, it actually took a lot of time. Like, I don't even know if I should say weeks or months, but I spent a reasonable amount of time trying to learn how everything over here works in terms of creating nested form, variants, and all this in Django, and understanding how it all happens behind the scene. Not just writing the code, but understanding. So if for any reason you don't understand what's going on, I totally understand. Don't worry, with time, with more experience, the more you keep looking at the code and trying to build it and replicate it and rewatching the tutorial, asking questions, using AIs to help it explain things that are going on for you, the more it will start becoming clear for you. Okay, so we have data variant ID, same thing here. We haven't started writing the JavaScript, we're just preparing the HTML. Okay, and we also have this here. This is supposed to be item.content. I made a mistake. This is supposed to be item.title. All right, so that is it. When you get back here now and reload, we should now boldly see it bringing in the SM, XL, and also the color green. Don't bother about those double things that it's bringing in. That is basically because over here you can see that we are clearly adding the same thing for the title and for the content. Okay, so that is why we are able to see green, SM, XL. Okay, I hope all this makes sense to you. And yeah, that should be it. Over to the final configurations before we start the JavaScript. The data variant index, please let it be for loop dot counter 0, which means you start from 0. After you have done that, let's go through the code from the beginning, from here, to see everything that we've done or if we've made mistakes. Okay, so the very first thing was looping through the code, and after that we had this ID here called variant that will help us remove variants. Oh yeah, see, we forgot something. So over here you need to make sure to add variant ID here. That is when we want to start deleting the variants. Okay, and after this we have data variant index for loop dot counter 0. That makes sense. Then we come over to the input. This first input over here, it's hidden, I know about that, and I said variant ID should be a list. The value should be variant.id. Good. Then over here also we said input text blah blah blah. The name is variant item title. That is correct. The value is variant.name. That is correct. And then we have a button that is going to be used for removing. It has, most importantly, a class of remove variant, a data attribute of data product ID, and also a data attribute of data variant ID. Very good. And after that, we then have this loop over here to loop through the items. This loop has a sub item. Okay, see, I missed something again. Put a sub item here with item ID. That is for us to be able to identify each div over here. Then we said item ID and called the for loop dot parents loop dot counter with the list over here. Very important. And we did the same thing for this code here also, and also the same thing for description. And we added the value and the value and also the variant data item ID. Good, we are done. That is everything that I want. The final thing now is over here that we'll be adding items. not adding variants, we need to finally say for loop dot counter, not parent counter. Okay, so counter 0. Good. So after you have done all this, that is pretty much everything that we want to do. Now let's go ahead and check out the images and see how it also works. So the images will be quite simple. Just write a simple for loop here and say for image in images, and I'm going to replace this here. Replace this with this. Good. And let's fix the indentation like this. And over here that we have image ID placeholder, we're going to say image dot gallery underscore ID. So image dot gallery underscore ID. And here that we have image container, I'm just going to say image dot ID. Okay, so gallery ID is basically, let me show you, in the image, where is the image field? We have this field here called gallery ID. Okay, that is basically what we are holding on to here for the data image ID. Now after you have done this, let's go ahead and display the image. So to display the image over here, you just need to say image dot URL. So image dot image is because here is the gallery. If you name this gallery, it should be the gallery model dot the image field dot URL. That is exactly the same thing, but since this is image, then it became image dot URL. Okay, so when you have done this, that is pretty much it. The only thing that is left is the trash icon that we have over here. So for the trash icon, you need to give it a data of product underscore ID, and you just need to say product.id. And also you need to give it its own data image underscore ID, and you need to say image.id. Very, very good. So when you have done all this, let's see how it looks here. So when you have done all this, let's see how it looks over here. We reloaded this page and we are not seeing any image. Why is that? Let's see how the loop looks. Oh, the loop says for image and gallery in images, instead of it to use gallery images that were defined here. So here it should be for image in gallery images. Okay, and when we reload, we should be able to see one image show up here. Very, very good, right? Now using JavaScript, let's start with a variant. When we click on this add item, we want to add a new form dynamically without having to reload the page. And we'll be using jQuery to do this. So how do we go about this? All right, to start with the JavaScript, I want you to firstly import these two scripts for getting jQuery and also Sweet Alert. The very first thing I want to do is go ahead and start with the number of all the existing variants that we have. So I'll say script, and in this script, I'm going to say let variant underscore index be equal to, then I'm going to write a Django variable here that's going to say variant, then I get the length of all the variants. Okay, so this over here is just going to hold the number of, whoops, I went to the top. It's going to hold the number of all the variance lengths. So if the variance length, for example, is 23, we're technically saying variance index should be equal to 24. Okay, which is what we have over here. So we are saying variance index should be equal to 24 or 10 or 2 or 3, whatever the variant length is. Okay, so that is it. After this, we need to create two templates. One is going to be templates for the variance and another is going to be templates for the item. So templates for the variant is going to look like this. Let variant underscore templates be equal to an arrow function. So an arrow function is going to look like this: variant index, which is basically a parameter. And then an arrow function normally will return it like this, right? But what we want to return over here is a backtick so that we can write HTML codes in here. Okay, so now whenever we call the templates, the variant templates, whatever code we have over here is what we will dynamically populate down here, either where we click on the add item or the add variance. Okay, so what do we want to do over here in the variance templates? So there is this code that has a class of spec item. So search for spec dash item. Good. That is for everything that we have over here, right? Copy everything inside that loop, every single thing inside that loop, and I want you to paste it inside here. See, in between these two backtick, paste it in the middle here, and this is how it's going to look. Okay, this is what I want. Fix the indentation, and let's start formatting the code. Good. So after fixing the indentation, let's format the code from the top. Anywhere that we have any Django related code, we will remove it and make sure that we are adding our own code in JavaScript instead. So over here, we have Django related code for this. Remove it. That is not needed. And variance data index. Over here, we have Django related code. So instead of us putting it this way, I'm going to remove it and instead add a variable tag for JavaScript instead. And I'm going to call the variance index. Okay, so all this over here will be as good as we are creating new items. So whenever you're adding new one, we don't want to append any ID to it, rather we append the variance index to it, which means whenever you click on add item, that means you're adding a new item. Okay, but whenever you update an existing item, that means you are updating an item that already exists in the database. Okay, so follow along. Let's do this. Next is cat body. That line is good. Then we have this line is good. This input has hidden variance ID and it doesn't have, you can remove the value. I don't really need this value. Okay, just leave it empty. And same thing for this one also. Remove this, leave it empty, because when you're adding a new variant item or a new variant itself, it's not going to have a value. Okay, so just remove all that. And for the button, just leave the remove variant over there. We'll make use of that. Okay, and let's see. I don't really need any of this, so all this will not come in handy for me. Okay, so that is it for this line. Let's get started with the sub item container and everything in here. For the sub item container, cut everything in here. You see this for loop, just take everything in here. We don't need any of that, and we will put all that in another template that is going to be called sub item template. So I'm going to say let's sub underscore item underscore template be equal to, then here I'm just going to pass in variance index and say it should be equal to a backtick, just like we initially had. 2 backticks, and now in here I will paste what we just copied. Okay, so this is what we copied, right? I will paste it down here. Good, we'll get back there later, not now. So in here where we cut that item from, what you want to put over here is call the JavaScript variable tag and call the sub item template, and based on the fact that it's a function, you want to initialize the function and also pass in the variance index. Okay, just like this, and that is everything that we need to do for this one. Okay, let's look at this button. Looks good all the way to this section. Data variance index is for loop.counter. Please, instead of it showing for loop.counter, add a JavaScript variable tag and say variance index instead. Okay, all right, so when you've done that, that is pretty much everything we want to do for that one. Let's fix the sub item templates. Remove those comments, I don't need that. Remove the Django loop tags that you can see here, I don't need any of that. And fix the indentation so it looks good. Okay, very okay. So when we have done this, over here we have the sub item with this item ID. Remove this, I don't need it. And also we have this for loop here, I don't need this for loop. So what we're going to do is replace everything all the way to this section with Django, my bad, not Django, but with JavaScript variable tag. Replace it with variant index. Okay, and we're going to replace this variant index here with anywhere, replace it with anywhere we have this for loop counter thing. So just replace it here and here. Very good. I believe we don't have it anywhere at the top here, so it's okay. Now remove the values, because if you're going to be creating a new item, by default it's not going to have any value till you start typing in a value. All right. And also for the remove item, I'm just going to remove this and this also. Okay, so remove the data variant ID and the data item ID. Just remove that too and we should be good. Now we have remove item as expected, and that is everything that I need. Okay, and I'm going through the code just to make sure everything is okay, and yep, everything looks perfectly well and checks out fine. So how do we actually now add a new variant? When we click on the add variant button, which is this one here, let me show you. So when we click on this button here, add variant, which is this button here, how do we then add a new variant? All we need to do is when we click on that button, we will take this variance template and duplicate it, then append it to the main div. Well, if that was a lot of talking, let's go ahead and do that. So we will just use jQuery to grab the ID like this, and we'll add an onClick event to it. Say, hey, on click of that button that has the ID of add variant, go ahead and create a function. And what is this function gonna do? Quite simple. What we just need to do is say, hey, grab us the variant container. Where is the variant container? It's this one all the way at the top here. So we grab the variant container and let me get down here again. So we say hash variant container, and what do we want to do with this variant container? We want to append. So we want to append the variant template. Append the variant template, and over here you need to pass in index, variant index, not just index. Okay, so after doing this, then we need to make sure that we increment the value of variant index, because whenever we are adding a new form, we want to make sure that variant index is actually unique. So after adding a form over here, go ahead and say variant underscore index plus plus. Okay, so if it was initially 23, when we add a new one, it becomes 24, and so on, so that each of the items that will be prepending will have different types of variant index. Very good. So now let's reload this page and try this out to see what we have. And the page has been reloaded. When you click on this, let's see what we have. So when we click on this, see, we added a new one. Click on this, we added a new one. It's as simple as that. See, it's not difficult. We added a new one. So what we are doing over here is just duplicating the templates. Do you remember the templates that we created here? This variant is we're just duplicating it. And the fact that you can see this in here is because if you remove this now, you won't be able to see any of this item and description in here. Let me show you. So if you understand JavaScript, this should be a walk in the park for you. See, we are not able to see any of that items in there anymore, just the variant, no item. That is because the template doesn't exist anymore for that. Good. We're now able to add this one. How about for the items? How do we also add the items? So that one is will be a little bit different. Just say document dot on, and what on click of what? So on click of the dot add item dot add dash item. So there is a class of add item. Let me show you over here in the add item button. So this is the add item button. There is a class that's given to it called add item button. Now what we need to do is grab this and say, hey, whenever we click on this button, what do we want to do? Let's create a function that will perform an operation. So this function over here is going to do something very simple, and that is formulating an index for us. So we'll say let index be equal to this. So this over here basically holds onto the particular elements that we are clicking on. So if we click onto this on this button, this here means that, hey, we are clicking on this element here. It grabs everything in this element and send all the events to this function here. So it knows what button we are clicking on and what value we have in here and so on. Okay, so we say this dot data. Now if you look at the add item again, you will see that it has a data attribute here. Whenever we click on this button, we want to grab the current data variant index that we have in it. So what we are saying is grab the variant index over here. So when we click on that any of the add item button, we want to say this dot data, then we grab the data variant index. Very good. After grabbing it, you then need to say this dot sibling. So this dot sibling, and then what do we need to do over here? Go ahead and grab the item container. Let me show you. So in the for loop, you can see that we have the sub item container here. Grab that, and we need to put it down here. So over here we say dot sub item container dot append, and we want to append the sub item templates, and make sure that you're passing in the index. So the index is a little bit different from this one. Since this is the variant, we are passing in the variant index. Since this is the item, we are passing in a more custom index that relates to that exact variant that we are working on. This one is a variant, so we pass in just the general index. This one is an item inside the variant, so we are trying to pass in the index for that particular variant in this item. Okay, so when you have done this, that is pretty much it. Let's test this out. When you reload, you see you can click on this now to add another one. See, it's added another one. See, it's added another one, and so on. Click on this, add it. See, it keeps adding. Simple as that. You can click on this, you can add more, and it keeps adding. Very good. So I like this. Now the next thing will be to remove it from this place. Let's click on this to remove the variant. So to do that, I'm gonna say documents dot on click of what, on click of dot remove variant. So we give the trash icons a class of remove variant. What do we want to do? So we're going to create a function that's going to perform an operation, and that operation will basically be get the product ID firstly. So we say let product ID be equal to this. I have explained what this means. And we want to grab the attributes of whatever we have in the remove variant button. We have a data attributes there that is called what? The data attributes there is called data dash product underscore ID. I want to do the same thing for variant. So data dot variant underscore ID, and make sure that you are changing this here to variant. Very good. After you've done these two things, if you want, you could go ahead and console log them so you see how they look. So you can console log product ID and variant ID to see what you're getting. Okay, after you've done these two things, all you need to do is this one simple thing. To remove them from over there, you just need to say this dot closest, then what do we want to say? Dot variant, then remove. So this, please type out the remove perfectly well. So what this is going to do is, as soon as you click on any of this, it will check which is the closest to this variant over here and remove the item that we clicked on. So this dot variant, what it's going to do is identify the nearest parent element with the class of dot variant, which is each and every one of those parent variants over here. This is a parent variant, this is a parent variant. And after it has identified the nearest parent element with a class of variant that is relative to the current element. So when we click on this trash icon, this parent element is relative to this current item here. What we'll do is go ahead and remove the variant element and all its child elements. Okay, so that means if you come over here and click on this, it will remove this variant over here and all its child. So clicking on this now, is that working? Let me see. All right, that is not working. Did I reload this page? Let me make sure that I reloaded this page perfectly well. And now let's add a new variant and try removing this variant. Good. Can you see? You can add variants now. and let's say this one is GDDDD, this one is EEEE, and you try removing the GDD, you will see that it removed it, and this also is gone. But this cannot go like that. Why? That is because it's quite different and it's coming from the database. So we will dynamically check if an item is coming from the database, delete it from the database. But if an item is not coming from the database, delete it from the UI over here. And how do we even do that? To do that, you need to check for something, and that is quite simple. All you need to say is if, then you check if variant ID and product ID actually exists. That means data is coming from the database, right? What if they don't exist? That means data is coming from the UI. So if they don't exist, we delete from the UI. If they exist, then it gets a little bit tricky. That means we need to use Ajax and delete it from the back end. So I'm going to say Ajax and URL. Then we need to call backtick over here and then call the URLs. Have we configured the URL? Well, we haven't. So let's configure the URLs. Now I'm going to open up my views py side by side with my URLs as we configure this. Okay. So we have this, and this. Now I'm just going to duplicate 1, 2, 3, 4 and change up their names. This, and this. So I'm going to change up their names over here. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Change that up. This also here. Change it up. See? And this one also here. Change it up. Only what we need to now update is this. The delete variant needs the product ID and also the variant ID. Okay? Do you see that? And also the delete variant item needs the variant ID and also the item ID. So over here we have the item ID. Very good. And the delete product image needs the product ID and also the image ID. So over here I'm gonna say image underscore ID. And finally, to delete the product, we just need the product ID. Good. Now our server will start reloading, and over here in this template we need to call this URL that is going to delete a variant for us. So I'm calling this URL here, and all I just need to say is \vendor/ then we paste the URL that we copied, replace product ID with JavaScript's variable tag and say product ID. Same thing goes for variant ID. Replace it with JavaScript variable tag and say variant ID. Very, very good. I like how everything is turning out. Now, what is the data type that we are sending this in? So data type is JSON. Very good. And before we send this, let's go ahead and console log something, maybe deleting or whatever you want to console log. I'm just going to say deleting, which means we are deleting something, right? And after we have deleted this, it's going to return a response to us in the success function. So grab the response from the parameter. The most important thing is to firstly log the response, see what we are getting. And after that, we need to go ahead and remove the div. So to remove the div from here, we actually, when we delete from the database, then we just tweak the UI to hide the div. Because once the div is hidden, the next time a user reloads the page, the div will not be shown because it has been removed from database. It's just like a way around removing items. Okay. So to remove the div, you need to say $. Then we need to call variant. And remember that if you scroll to the top, you will see where I gave it this variant, then variant ID. So this is exactly what we need. That is exactly what we need here. So variant, but instead of this variant ID, we then need to replace it with this variant ID that we got here by saying what? $this. It's not going to work because you're not using backtick. Please use backtick like this. There you go. Now that is going to work. Then go ahead and add a bootstrap class called dnone, which is display none. I don't want to show it again. And after you have done that, that should be gone actually. So if you reload this page, let's test that out, and we add a new variant here. You can go ahead and delete this one, and you can see it's gone. But what if you click on this variant here to delete it? Click, see, it's gone. Very good, it's working. So did it actually work in the back end? That's the most important thing. Oh yes, it did. Can you see? It's deleted it and gave 200 requests. So now when we reload this page, do you think it's gonna still be there? Of course not, it won't be. See, we now have only color. Does this make sense now? Yep, it sure does to me. I hope it does to you too. So let's go ahead and also remove the item. So you know what, I'm just gonna type out all this because I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so just down here I will say document dot on click of what. So as soon as we click the remove item class, what do we want to do? Let's create a function to perform an operation, and all we just need to do here is say let variant underscore id be equal to this, which is the current element we are clicking on, dot attribute. We have an attribute in there that is called data dash variant underscore id. We also have another one called item underscore id. So create a new variable. Because it's already yelling at us. So yeah, after this we need to check, hey, if variant id and item id actually exists, which means data is coming from the database, else data was added newly and the user have not saved it to the database. So in that case, what we just need to do is go ahead and remove it. So I'm just gonna take this, I don't want to have to retype it, and say dot sub dash item dot remove. So remove the closest item to the sub item. Okay, now when we get back here, reload this page, and then we add a new variant, and maybe we add a new item. When you click on this now, see, it's gone. Click on this, see, it's gone. So this is now working perfectly well as expected. Very good, but this won't be gone. See, it's not going. That is because we have not written any function to delete it from the database over here. So just grab this Ajax. I'm not going to retype the Ajax and paste it here because it's almost identical. And you need to change the Ajax to this vendor slash delete variant items. This one here is going to be the variant ID that we have here. And this other one is going to be the item ID that we have here. All good, all good. So then we have data type JSON. Then we have this function that is going to console log deleting. And then we have this console log for the response. And then to remove it from this UI over here, that is for the one that's coming from the database, all you need to do is say sub dash item, and this is going to be item ID dot add class dnone, and we remove this. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, that is when you should actually understand everything that is going on here at the go. Okay, actually there is one thing I want to tell you guys, and that is if you want to achieve this function, it cannot be done without JavaScript. So you need some sort of JavaScript to do this. Django is not a front-end framework, it's a back-end server framework, which means it cannot dynamically add forms for you like this to click on. Even the one that was built using Django admin that you can do this was added using JavaScript. I've read the whole code about it and it was done using JavaScript. Okay, so if you're like, oh come on Destiny, can't you do all this without JavaScript? The quick answer to that is no, you can't. You can't do that without JavaScript. If you don't know JavaScript, you could just copy the code and paste, okay, to still work perfectly well for you. But I highly recommend you try to understand JavaScript. There's a full JavaScript course that is coming out soon on Desphixs Pro. It will soon be out, so watch out for that. I'm going to also notify you as soon as it's out. Okay, so with this now, let's get back here and reload this. And when we click on any of this color, it should be gone. So remove this one, but when we click on this, it's gone. So if you reload this, we shouldn't see it in the in this page again because we also deleted it from the database, right? If you reload this page now, you should see, hey, I don't know what you're trying to tell me to fetch, but it doesn't exist. See, it doesn't exist anymore. Very good. So you can also click on this to finally remove the whole variant, and the whole variant will be gone. So right now, if you try reloading this, we're going to see an error that says, I can actually find the variants that you're trying to access, which means it has been deleted. That is very, very cool. Indeed, it's very, very cool. Now let's work with the last section of everything that we have to work with here, which is the image. The very first thing we want to do for images, as soon as we click on this, let's add a new container that is going to help us select an image. Okay, does that make sense? Yep, let's get started. So we will be creating a new script for that one. And just down here, I'm going to create a new hash add image btn. If you search for this, you'll see that we have this button here that is called add image, which is this one, has an ID of add image btn. So when we click on the add image btn, what we want to do is add a click event on it, and then create a function to perform an operation. Okay, so all we need to say is define a var and say image index should be equal to, and I don't have any image index when we are trying to add a new one, so let's just define a random index using the dates. I'm going to say, hey JavaScript, create me a new date object and get the time from that date. So the time is going to be a long character that looks like this. We'll use that to be the ID, okay, or the image index rather. And after that, let's create the image template by saying image HTML should be equal to backtick like this. And in here, we need to go ahead and copy the image. So scroll back to where we have the image, and let's see. So to create the template for this one, all we need to do is copy this whole div here, and we will have to put it down here. Okay, so paste it here and fix the indentation. After that, I'm gonna fix this. Good. And after that, let's go ahead and make it look better for how we are going to use it. Okay, the very first thing is you can see over here that I have data image ID, right? I don't really need that. I have co-lg3 and I have image container, and I have this data image ID. Please change this in a JavaScript variable. You want to use the image index that we created at the top. Okay, just copy the image index. We used it in a couple of places. Again, let's go through all this one by one. There you go. Okay, over here for the new images, I'm gonna have a h4 tag, just a basic h4. That's gonna also close over here, and it should just say image. Okay, and I have this image tag here that I don't really need. Instead, I'm gonna put in get rid of it and put in an input there. Okay, I hope you're following along. Put an input. The type of this input is gonna be a file. Okay, and the class of this input is going to be a form dash control, and I want to say mb2. Good. And the name of this input should be image underscore, then the image index. Remember when I explained this in the images? After you've done this, that's about it. All you just need to do is down here say $hash images dash container dot append. So dot append, and what do we want to append? Image HTML. As simple as that. When you've done this, let's see what we now currently have. Okay, I think one thing is still missing. Remember the image index, you need to replace it here. You see here that we have this data products ID. Remove that, I don't really need it. And also here that we have data image ID, replace it with this. Okay, that is going to be for the trash that we'll work on in the next one. So over here, reload this page, and when you click on image, let's see. Okay, there you go. Can you see? We can now add multiple images like this. See? Add, and it's working perfectly well as expected. Good. So you can select new images here, but the delete button won't be working, obviously. So let's make the delete button to work. And for that, it's going to be almost identical to what we've been working with. So what do we want to do? Just outside here, create a new document dot on click of what? So when we click the delete image btn, so on click of the delete dash image dash btn, what do we want to do? I'm going to say function and var image id should be equal to, we say this dot data, and then we'll pass in image dash id. Good. So we're grabbing the image id data, and this one here that we just grabbed is basically this see, image id. Oh, I think it's actually called image underscore id. Maybe I made a mistake. Let me see what I called it here at the top. So image underscore id, called it image id here too. Okay, this one here is image dash id. So this is not the one I need. I need image underscore id. Okay, so scroll all the way to the bottom, and here should be dash image underscore id. Okay, so after we've grabbed the image id over here, all we need to do is go ahead and get the product id and the image id by saying let product id be equal to this dot, then we grab the attributes, and then for the attributes we just say data dash products underscore id, just like we've been doing all this while, and also image underscore id. Good. Also replace this one here with image underscore id. Oh, good. So when you have done that, that is everything I want to do. I'm just gonna say if products underscore id and image underscore id exist, that means we remove an item from the database, else we want to remove an item from the front end. So how do we do that? So to remove an item from the front end, let's take another approach. So you could say, hey, fetch me any image that has the class of image dash item. Let's see if we have that. Good. Can you see we have image dash item over here, and we want to make sure that image dash item has an attribute of data image id. So I'm going to search for data image id. So now we have data image id here, but for some reason we don't have the image item showing up here. Okay, that means we need to add it dynamically here when we create an image. So over here, just add a class for image dash item. Okay, so these are just basic JavaScript DOM manipulations. And after you have done this, then down here we will basically have to say image dash item, then we call data dash image dash id should be equal to, then in a string we call JavaScript variable tag, and we just pass in the image id and say dot remove. So over here we just remove it. Okay, so let's see how this is going to work. Reload this page and let's add new images. Just close this, click on this, add new images. Now when we click on this, see, removes the images. Good. So let's say that I'm going to select a file for this one, and that is the file. But as soon as we click on it, it removes it. See, it removes, but this one is not going to remove. That is because we need to write a code to remove it from the database. So how do we do that? Grab one of the Ajax. I don't want to have to type all this out by myself. and put it down here. So we just need to change up the URL. You can see currently we have this URL for delete products image. Replace it with this one, and replace this here with product ID, and replace this one here with image ID. Very good. And every other thing looks okay to me. You can see success function showing the response. The only thing I'm going to do here is for me to remove an item, I need to remove the image container entirely. So I'm going to say image dash container. If you search for image dash container, then you will see that it's the main overall container holding this image here. But please don't also miss to add the image container image ID. So this image ID must be over here for you to actually remove it. Good. So with this now, we might have come to the end of our topic for updating products. So when we click on this, it's gone, and it's gone forever from the database. Good. So now let's try creating new variants, and if that works, then we should be good to go. So we create a new variant. I'm just going to call this one color, and I'm going to say green, and over here I'm going to say green, and let's save this. Good. We didn't get any error, and there you go. Our variants seem to be saved without the variant items. Let's see if that's got saved in our database. So we have a new color variant. Yep, it got created, but why didn't items create? So that is a problem. We need to fix that. Let's add an item and see. Green, green, and we save. Did it create? Nope, it didn't create. So that is a problem. Now we already know that items are not creating. How about for images? Let's add 2 images. I'm gonna add this, and let me just choose the same image again, okay? And let's save. Good. Let's see. Oh, yep, images are working perfectly well. So when you click, it goes. When you click, it goes. So images are not a problem, but adding items are a problem. So what is the problem with adding items? I'm going to open up my terminal, and I'm going to try adding new items to see what's going on. So green, green. Okay, before we even add items, let's try updating our variants to see if it works. So I'm going to say color updated and save. And there you go. Color updated is working. Good. But adding items isn't working. Green, green, white, white. And when we save, oh yeah, it's not working. So let's see what's wrong. So guys, I just took a quick break to actually review my code and see what's going on. And I noticed that over here, if item ID does not exist, we technically don't run anything here. So in here where we are running this code to actually create a new variant, we are doing it wrong. We need to indent to get back to match up with this line over here. Can you see that? So match up with this line here for the item ID. If item ID does not exist, that means we're trying to create a new item. See, I printed something down here, right? That is basically this here. So I wanted to check, hey, what happens when I pass in green, green for title and description for a new variant item? And I noticed that it doesn't bring in the IDs, right? Because we're trying to create a new item and it's not yet saved in the database. So there is no way it's going to give us an ID. Now, that is why we want to make sure that, hey, check that. So that is why we want to make sure to check, hey, if item ID exists, we update. If item ID doesn't exist, we create a new one. Does this make sense? So let's test this out. Test it out one more time. Reload our code. And I'm going to add new items. I'm going to say green, green. And let's save this and see what we have. So when you save, can you see? Green, green. It's working. You can add another one. White, white. And when we save, we should now be able to see white, white. Can we update? So what if we say green updated? I'm going to add the updated keyword to all of them. Anyone that doesn't have the updated keyword is not updating. Okay. And then we save. Did it update? Good. Green updated, 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 updated. Good. Now you can add another variant. So you can say variant. And for this one, I'm going to say size, XSL, XS. And we save. Let's see what we have. Okay, very good. Size, XSL, and XS. Good. Guys, that is pretty much it. If you're able to complete this, a very big congratulations to you. So by the time Desphixs launches, there'll be a tool that is called TWS, which stands for tutorial with steps, which is basically a feature that helps you follow tutorials step by step in a written form, where you can follow it on your own pace, read and reiterate with the tutorial, okay, instead of watching a video for it. Now, tutorial with steps is something that's really going to help you understand things like this, because we go more in depth in the explanation when it's written, because we can easily update explanations, and if we feel like an idea is missing, we can do that. But for a video like this, we can't easily update a video like that, because once it's created, or we have to delete the video and remake it, which is quite impossible. So that is why TWS will be a no-brainer for you if you want to understand everything that goes out here. I'll make sure to leave the explanation of each and every line of this code in the source code. So if you already have the source code, please hop over to the section where we created the product and update it. There should be detailed description for each and every line of the code that we have written, okay? That is going to be it for the tutorial. If there is something that you don't understand, let me know. Links will be in the description below for Desphixs Pro. Do make sure to check it out. It's launching in a very short time. It contains a lot of features that were specifically built to help you become a better programmer. Also, some of the courses in the description below can help you also become a better Django Python developer. That is going to be it. I hope to see you in the next video. And until then, mad love. Peace out.